Hey everyone, it's the online doula. Today we're going to take a minute away from work and staring at the computer screen, and we're going to spend a little bit of time chatting about three in particular questions that you can ask a doula that you are interviewing about her services that are going to help you really be able to decide if this is the right woman for you. So hang tight, get out your notepad, and let's get ready to dive in. All right, folks, let's begin by acknowledging that you can compile a list of questions to ask potential doula service providers by just doing a simple Google search. Questions to ask a doula, interview questions for a doula. By all means, take a look at those. Pop in there and know that you're going to probably get about the same 5 questions for every website that you go to. So today we want to talk about 3 questions that you can ask that are going to peel back the layers of the onion just a little bit more effectively so that you can really precisely know whether this woman is the one that's for you, right? So your Google search is going to probably yield questions like, where did you get your training? How many births have you done? What's your philosophy about birth? All really good questions. But truth be told, those questions should be answered within the confines of a Facebook business page or a group that your potential doula is managing, or they should be on her website or across the board, available on all of those. So if that's not the case, if you've visited each of these venues through which she is providing information about her services and you still have to wonder about those things, then it might already be time to hit the pause button and move on, because those are pretty simple questions that most of us who are in this line of work are already anticipating. So we try to answer those questions on our social media venues so that you don't have to waste your precious time together with us in consultation asking simple questions like that can really be answered through that venue. So today we're not even going to, those are off the plate, okay? We're going into 3 questions that will cause each of you to dig a little deeper and see if you are a right match, because it needs to go both ways, right? Not only does client need to be really satisfied with doula, but doula needs to be pretty excited to work with this client that's sitting in front of her as well, because it's a two-way street here. And we're talking about a service that's being provided at a very vulnerable time in life, and the two of you need to agree upon the notion that you're right for each other. So there's that, okay? And sometimes you hear that also, that as long as you get along with the doula that you've hired, as long as energetically and vibrationally you're feeling one another and it's a good fit, you have found the one that's right for you. Well, I'm going to tell you that that's not where the story ends. So let's dive in. Question number 1. I, as a client, would ask a doula, and I expect clients to ask me, what type of clients find their way to you? Who is your target market? Who is it that's seeking out your services? And in some ways, this is kind of a reverse way of asking, who do you really like to work with? Your doula's answer is going to give you an idea of who she works well with and the type of philosophy that set of parents might have, and what those parents do in their normal everyday lifestyles, and so on and so forth. And it's not necessarily that you two need to be an exact match, but if you hear, well, the type of client that tends to find me is looking for somebody who really needs lots of information, lots of support. We're talking on the phone once or twice a week. And the kind of person that you really are is somebody who's a little hands-off, who tends to reach out for help when you need it. But other than that, you don't need a whole lot of hand-holding and support in that way. Then you might not be the greatest match. So if a doula is expecting to spend a lot of time with you and you aren't really expecting to spend a lot of time with her, by asking her what type of client generally finds their way to you, you are going to be able to formulate a bit of information without even having to ask super directly, and probably some additional information along the way. So that's question number 1. Number 2, If I have a labor that is long, difficult, unusual, exceptionally arduous, what experience or skill are you going to bring to my labor and birth? So, the truth be told, almost anybody can support a woman when she has a really fantastic, smooth, easy labor. And even if her pregnancy has had some ups and downs, if she tends to segue into labor and her pregnancy towards in those last weeks, in those latter weeks, 36, 37, 38, 39 weeks, tends to be rather smooth, anybody can kind of support that person. It doesn't take any exceptional talent or skill to do that. But you want to hear, as a consumer who is paying money for the service that is supposed to be provided to you, you want to hear about experiences, actually rather specifically, without being scary or traumatizing. In exceptional situations, what kind of skills do you have under your belt that may help me should I find myself in a position of having something a little bit exceptional or extraordinary about my labor and birth? And some things that you might hear as an answer to that are, I use a rebozo on a regular basis. Here's what I use it for, and here's how I use it. Or I'm a spinning babies advocate and practitioner. I know how to, if we have a baby who is a little bit malpositioned going into labor, I know how to make some shifts and changes in that scenario. Or, as in my case, I have a really keen specialty for cesarean delivery. So I have the opportunity to bring some things into your cesarean space such that your birth doesn't become about this operation. It actually is still about the birth of your baby that happens to have occurred through the venue of cesarean birth. So there are some different things that you might hear from women relative to what their actual specialties and skills are and how they have had to use that in the past. Because it's one thing to have attended a weekend workshop and you can say, well, I went and did a workshop and I have been exposed to whatever the information might be, but I've never had to actually put it into practice. Well, everybody is a beginner at some point. Of course, we all get that. And a woman who is getting ready to hire a doula needs to know where her doula sits on that spectrum and paradigm of experience or lack thereof, and be able to mindfully decide which direction she's really willing to go. Okay? Third and final question. Other than hiring a doula, what other things should I be doing in my pregnancy to prepare for birth? So, and again, the answer could be a lot of different things here, and it just depends on what answer you're looking for and how well and comfortably it sits with you. So you might hear, you don't need anybody but me. And if you have complete and utter confidence in that doula, then perhaps that's totally true. And at least you know that that's her philosophy going into the process, right? You might also hear, I'd love for you to find an independent childbirth educator, the online doula. I'd love for you to find a craniosacral therapist so that we can make sure from cranio to sacral you have got everything in line. I might like you to find an acupuncturist. I might like for you to find a chiropractor, a massage therapist, a body worker, sometimes a counselor. And again, this is not a clinical diagnosis of anything, but based on experience, there are a lot of doulas, there are a lot of body workers, there are a lot of homeopathic and naturopathic people out there. There are a lot of people who are grounded in Western medicine who readily and willfully acknowledge that it not only takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village in this day and age to get women to where they have a pregnancy that is full spectrum, that she's really being taken care of in all ways, mind, body, and soul. And it's a really rare thing that it only requires the attention of one person to get that done. So, in other words, when you ask the question, other than hiring you or another doula, what kinds of things might I want vested? What kinds of other people would I want vested in my experience? In my opinion, you might do well, you might do better to hear that your doula is open-minded to sharing this experience that you are about to have with a variety of people so that you have a community involved in your health and wellness. Okay? So, first, what type of client finds their way to you most often? Second, if I have a labor that's a little bit extraordinary, what kind of experience and skills do you bring to the table that are going to potentially help me? And third, other than hiring a doula, who else should I be looking toward to be involved in this experience? And again, you can rewind the video and listen to a little bit more of the detail, or you can tune in and watch the blog, read the blog rather, that'll be posted in a day or two relative to this exact scenario with one other tiny bit of bonus information. So there's always something good to be had, whether you're watching video or reading the blog. You get the best coverage if you go full tilt and participate in all of them. And remember that you can join us on Facebook at The Online Doula, where we have an ongoing discussion about each of these subject matters per week. Just yesterday, The Online Doula posed the question, when you meet somebody new and you feel like you jive, what kinds of questions do you like to ask them? So take a look, join the group at The Online Doula, and look at what questions people have posed that they have offered up as questions that they find really interesting answers to, and why. Like, where are you from? Some people sometimes gather really good information from the answer that comes relative to that question. So it goes way deeper into other interesting conversation and questions that you might be able to pose to your doula and other folks, so that you know that when you're investing your money, you're putting it in a place that feels like the exact right place for you and your family, okay? So you can find us on Instagram at The Online Doula. You can find us on the World Wide Web at theonlinedoula.net, and you can find us on the Facebook group The Online Doula. Find us on all three of those places if you like, and stay tuned, because next week we've got another subject coming up, and we'll chat about this time 1 week from now. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.